Hello, this is Christina from Capital City Beads, and I am going to show you how to make these beaded fringe triangle earrings. First thing we need to do is thread our needle onto our size B Nymo thread. I'm using 5 feet. You can hide your thread between your fingertips and lay the eye of your needle right on top of that thread and just ease it in there. This is the easiest way to thread your needle. We're going to take the opposite end of the needle and we're going to tie it onto our triangle. You need to remember to leave a little bit of a tail. I like to leave at least 3 inches of a tail so that we can tie our thread off at the end. This is not a fancy knot. It is just a double knot. We just need to get our thread secured onto this wire frame opposite the loop. The loop is where the ear wire is going to go, and the thread is down there where the beads go. Once you got that knot nice and secure, you're going to scooch it to the edge of the triangle, and we're ready for our beads. We're going to start with 2 of the 3mm fire polish beads. Those are the bigger beads. And we're going to slide our needle underneath the wire frame and pull our thread all the way through. I use the side of my pointer finger to keep the beads in place. The beads need to stay on the outside of the triangle. Once they're pulled tight, you're going to pass your needle just through the last bead. Pull your thread all the way through and give it a good tug to make sure those beads are in the right place. To add the next bead, we're only going to pick up 1 3mm fire polish. We're going to pass our needle underneath the triangle, pull it all the way through, and then pass our needle back up through that 1 bead. You're going to continue adding 3mm fire polish beads along the bottom of the triangle using this same technique. There are 10 fire polish beads along the bottom of the triangle. So adding 1 bead at a time, you go under the triangle, pull it all the way through, using the side of your finger to help keep the bead in place, and then pass the needle back up through the bead. When you get to bead number 9, it's going to look like there is not enough room for bead number 10, but I promise you there is. So go ahead and just put it on there, pass it under the triangle, back up through the bead, and pull it nice and tight. Now we're going to add the size 11 seed beads. We're going to be passing our needle underneath these little thread bridges going between the beads. We're going to start by putting 2 size 11 seed beads on our needle, and we're going to pass our needle underneath the very first thread bridge. Same technique as we were doing before, except we're going under the bridge instead of under the triangle. Pull the beads tight and pass your needle back up through that last seed bead. Don't catch your thread like I did. Pull it around and pull it nice and tight. Now, adding 1 bead at a time, we're going to add the bead under the next bridge. On my earrings, I have 14 beads going across, but there are not 14 bridges. So some of these bridges are going to have 2 beads on them. So when you add that 4th bead, even though it doesn't look like there's a lot of room, you are going to add that 4th bead under the 2nd bridge. Pull tight and go back up through the bead. One bead at a time. You're going to continue this same technique all the way across the bottom of the triangle. If you end up with 12 beads, that's fine. If you end up with 15 beads, that's fine. This design, we're doing a very blunt, straight fringe, we're not doing anything tapered. If you were doing a tapered or a triangular fringe, you will need to have an odd number so that you can have a center. So if you were going to be bringing those down in a triangle, you would need a center fringe, but we're not doing that. So the number of beads you have in this row doesn't really matter, but I feel like 14 fills it in nicely and looks the best. Keep working one bead at a time until you've come to the end. Once you get to that 14th bead, you will squeeze it onto that last bridge with the 13th bead. There's plenty of room. Go under the bridge, pull nice and tight, and go back up through the bead. Once we've secured this last bead on there, we will be ready to add our fringe. For the fringe, it's super easy. You're going to pick up a series of beads. I do 8 of my main color. And you got to just trust that there's a hole. Please forgive my super wonky seed bead scooping. I'm about 3 feet away from the beads. And then I do 3 of the accent color and then a series of the size 8s. I'm going to put 1 of the black, 2 of the green, 1 of the copper, and then 1 last size 11 on the end as my anchor bead. You're going to slide those beads up all the way. I like to do this with my piece laying down. I'm going to scooch my tiny little anchor bead down and out of the way, and then pass my needle all the way back up through those beads. And you don't have to do it all in one shot. You can just go through a little, scooch them down, go through a little, scooch them down, and pass your needle until you come up to that 14th bead that we hooked on there. You're going to go up inside that bead and you're going to pull all the way through. So inside that last bead, and we're going to pull our thread all the way through. Give it a good tug and make sure there's no slack. You don't want droopy fringe. And to start the next one, we're just going to pass our needle into the next bead over. It might be a little full of thread, so you might have to give it a little push. Push your needle through, pull it all the way through the bead. Well, don't do what I did. But if you did, that's cool. Stuff happens. Oh, now my tail's stuck in there. Yeah, that's okay. Just be patient and pull it through. And we're going to add on the same exact series of beads. 14 fringes later, you are at the end and it is time to tie off our thread. So you're going to pull your needle all the way through that last fringe. Give it a nice tight pull. And then we're going to take our needle and we're going to stick it in between the 2 seed beads. We're not actually going in any bead, we're just going underneath the beads. We're going to gently, slowly pull, 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 and then right before it goes all the way through, you're going to dive back down through that little loop. This is going to create a little hitch knot right there on that thread. Pull really tight and make sure that that knot ends up between the beads so it's not wrapping around and you can see your thread. I like to pass my needle down through some of the beads in the neighboring fringe just to kind of hide the tail for security. You can also even dab some glue up there where you tied that hitch knot. We also need to tie off that pesky little tail from the beginning. We are going to put our needle on that tail. And we're going to tie the same kind of hitch knot. This time we're going to go between the first 2 fire polish beads. And before we pull it all the way through, we're going to go back down through that loop. I didn't have enough tail, so I had to go backwards through the loop. No problem, it's the same knot. I'm going to pass the rest of that tail through that last fringe just to hide it. You can also dab some glue on that knot we just made as well. We're gonna trim these tails, get nice and close with your snippers. You're gonna trim that tail and trim the thread on the other side. Oh, don't cut your fringes. That would be a very sad day for you. Now all I gotta do is pop on that ear wire. These ear wires are super easy to use. Just open it up a little, stick the loop on there, and pinch it closed. You're all done. Enjoy.